Hello. If you haven't met me before, my name is Anita and I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm all about making things easy for anyone to tap into their power. And I love books. I have loads of books, and I love self-development, personal development, spirituality, personal growth, but I also love kids' books. And so I thought life can be full on, and I love every now and then getting a children's book out, and I love the pictures and I love the words when they've got that beautiful flow. And so I thought I would start a playlist on my channel where I'm telling you stories, and there's always a meaning to the stories. There's always something that can inspire you or remind you of something. And so for the first story that I want to read to you, it is Piggybook, and it's by Anthony Browne. And I read this story when my kids were in kinder. I remember sitting in the kindergarten, sitting on one of those little kindergarten chairs, and I just loved it, and I had to go out and buy it. So, Piggybook. This is fun. I've never done this before. I hope you enjoy it. Post me a message and follow and subscribe if you enjoy this. But yeah, let me know, give me feedback and any tips, because I've read stories to my kids and my grandkids, but never to a YouTube channel. So let me see. I didn't even work out how to do this so that you can see the gorgeous pictures. Mr. Piggot lived with his two sons, Simon and Patrick, in a nice house with a nice garden and a nice car in the nice garage. Inside the house was his wife. "Hurry up with the breakfast, dear," he called every morning before he went off to his very important job. "Hurry up with the breakfast, Mum," Simon and Patrick called before they went off to their very important school. After they left the house, Mrs. Piggot washed all the breakfast things, made all the beds, vacuumed all the carpets, and then she went to work. "Hurry up with the meal, Mum," the boys called every evening when they came home from their very important school. "Hurry up with the meal, old girl," Mr. Piggot called every evening when he came home from his very important job. And I'll give you a little tip. You'll start to notice something in the pictures, so keep an eye out and see if you can spot it. So there he is. Oops. Eating his food. Or maybe if I go back a bit, that's better, isn't it? Okay. As soon as they had eaten, Mrs. Piggot washed the dishes, washed the clothes, did the ironing, and cooked some more. One evening, when the boys got home from school, there was no one to greet them. "Where's Mum?" demanded Mr. Piggot when he got home from work. I'll put it a bit closer so you see if you can start to see what's happening in the pictures. If you haven't worked it out, I'll tell you at the end. Here's another picture. She was nowhere to be found. On the mantelpiece was an envelope. Mr. Piggot opened it. Inside was a piece of paper. "You are pigs." Might be obvious now what's changing in the picture. Have a look at the wallpaper. Have a look at the mantelpiece. Okay. But what shall we do, said Mr. Piggot. They had to make their own meal. It took hours and it was horrible. Next morning, they had to make their own breakfast. It took hours and it was horrible. The next day and the next night after that, Mrs. Piggot was still not there. Mr. Piggot, Simon, and Patrick tried to look after themselves. They never washed the dishes. They never washed their clothes. Soon the house was like a pigsty. When is Mum coming home? The boys squealed after another horrible meal. How should I know? Mr. Piggot grunted. They all became more and more grumpy. One night there was nothing in the house for them to cook. We'll just have to root around and find some scraps, snorted Mr. Piggot. Just then, Mrs. Piggot walked in. Oops. Please come back, they snuffled. So Mrs. Piggot stayed. Mr. Piggot washed the dishes. Patrick and Simon made the beds. Mr. Piggot did the ironing. And they all helped with the cooking. They actually enjoyed it. Mum was happy too. She mended the car. And that is the end of my first story to you. So I think the message in it's kind of obvious, and I just really love it because it encourages our children and hopefully the adults that hear it, read it, tell it, to remember to not take each other for granted and to appreciate and to not have to stick to old-fashioned rules that aren't relevant for today, that we're all valuable and we're all responsible to grow ourselves up, even children, with the guidance of parents. It's like that's that safety net where we're meant to learn the skills to be responsible for ourselves rather than expect other people and blame and control other people to get what we want, that we can actually create what we want. So I hope you liked the Piggybook. Please subscribe if you want to hear more stories and click on the bell thing so that you get the notifications when I come with another story. I'll have to choose what's the next story that I will tell. I will mix it up between kids' books and adults' books. This is my book that I wrote, and I created my own fairy tales in it. So there's my interpretations of fairy tales in there. And it's my Bible for women to do with relationships. But yeah, I might read a little bit from that one day, but I've got so many books from other people that I want to share with you because there's so many amazing authors out there. And let me know if there's a book that you want me to share about. And when I talk about the adult books, I'll just read an excerpt from it and I'll do a bit of a summary about the book and some important things about it. But the kids' books I'll read when they're like this one. I'll read them out because it's fun. And how often as adults do we get to hear a story? And kids' stories are for adults too, not just for kids. So I look forward to telling you some more stories. See you.